Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Programmatic Digest, a podcast where we review industry highlights about the programmatic industry or the ad tech world. I'm Ellen Parker, your host, the founder and chief programmatic Sensei of Ellen Parker Consulting, where we offer customizable training. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's podcast is going to be slightly different. It is a solo episode of myself. I will be sharing a couple things. So if you're listening to this on audio, worry not, you can access the video on YouTube. If not, if you are tuning in on YouTube, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow us. So, in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to talk about the Programmatic IO conference that happened in New York. To give you the exact date, it was October 25th to October 26th, 2021. And it was a lot of fun. So I want to give a big thank you to the AdExchanger for hosting us, for organizing us, and making sure that the conversation and discussion were diverse in terms of topic, in terms of background of guests. So I was pretty satisfied to return into an industry event after like 2 years being at home, 2 years and a half. So shout out to AdExchanger, you're the GOAT. The next event will be in Vegas in May, and looking into attending. May happens to be birthday month, in between birthday month and my family, so it's booked to capacity, and my family comes first. No offense. So we'll see. Maybe I make it, but you'll be the first to know once if I make it or once I make the decision. So, um, what to expect during this podcast? Again, this is a solo episode. Hey, you'll get to join me and venture through some tweet conversation I've had during that time during the Programmatic IO. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Let me just say this: we've made some great connection. Before we dive into today's content, I want to highlight the importance of attending an industry conference, an industry workshop, training and development outside of work or outside of your home or outside of just your day to day team. It is really important to set yourself in an environment of success, in a community that is like minded and that also holds you accountable in terms of always challenging you with new ideas. I mean, our industry is great for challenging us with new ideas. So, um, I, I would recommend that you find a local, I don't know, AMA chapter or a local programmatic networking event so that you get to attend and get to talk to other professionals in the industry, understanding what their struggles are. Even if we understand industry wise, we know what's going on and the challenges on a day-to-day basis, on an agency to agency basis. We're going through different type of challenges, and being able to share with your fellow programmatic ninjas or your fellow marketers is also there's growth into joining a community, a like-minded community. So I would recommend for you to check out anything in your area, or if you're able to have your agency or your company pay for it, do it. It is totally worth it, for on many level. If your manager listening to this, please advocate for your team. Make sure you send them. Yes, you may not send every single one, but make sure you send a couple of your team to help them come back and tell you about the conferences, and then rotate them. And also, I want to tell my managers out there that even though a conference is a great source or opportunity for business development, it is very important to remember to send a programmatic media trader, a media buyer, an ad ops, an analyst, somebody that may not be client facing to those conferences, because let's be honest, those people are the ones that are actually going to implement a lot and execute a lot when it comes to campaign performance. I'm not discrediting anybody else in the department, but don't forget about our ad ops, again, programmatic media teams. Those are really important to know. Don't only send your sales or your execs to conferences, please. With that being said, let's get into today's conversation. I think if anyone listened to this podcast and had to recap the conversation on the one, it would most likely be those two quotes. So let me find them for you. And again, if you're on audio, I will make sure to read it out loud. So here it is. Okay. So ad tech isn't dead. Programmatic is eating the world. That is maybe the quote that won the whole conference, period, point blank. Ari Paparo from Beeswax said that, and in his presentation, he highlighted a lot about collaboration between supply and demand side, and of course, on the particular slide that I'm sharing, I took a picture of the slides, and it basically said there are the key takeaways from the presentation. So ad tech isn't dead, programmatic is eating the world. Identity will fundamentally change the way we do business. And then the last point of the key takeaways that he had on the slides is as so. This is a watershed moment for programmatic like no other. Ari's was super funny. He brought so much energy. If you had a chance to interview him or see him on webinars, I strongly recommend. He just has that charisma and he just pulls you into his content. So that was really fun to watch. So that's one of the quote I think won the conference. Another one that maybe takes second place is from Rachel Mervis from PwC, and Kimberly Clark, sorry. And she said, as she was talking and networking, which is the beauty of attending those conferences, somebody told her that marketing is a skyscraper and programmatic is circuitry. So I thought that was probably the second best quote of it all. Like it just, if we had to stop the conference, I would have been satisfied with those two. Obviously one happened on the first day and the second one, Ari Paparo, was on the second day. So that was kind of fun. So 3 things we want to maybe take away from the conference is the identity solution conversation, obviously. We all know that first party and third party cookie deprecation topics was going to be hot. So that was expected. So identity solution was probably about 6, maybe 40% of the conversation. CTV was also really, really big. And we'll get into a little bit more details about what our peers are saying about the topics. But CTV was really, really great. Was great in terms of like the amount of presentation that was offered, and maybe another 30%. And then lastly, I would say there were a few, not random, but great conversation around contextual targeting, which I guess could be grouped into the identity solution conversation. Contextual targeting was really hot. I believe that the keywords that won the conference, or I guess the MVP keywords or the drinking keywords of the conference, was definitely taxonomy / tracking. And what are the keywords? There was one more that kept coming up a lot, and I can't think of it right now. But anyway, so 2 of the session I attended that were my favorite was the Guide to Improving Diversity and Inclusion in Programmatic Advertising by Jellyfish. Shannon Harris was the presenter, and 6 Pillars of In-Housing by Brian Chapp. So we'll go ahead and review those. So, all right. So if you are on podcast, you're not able to see the meme that I'm sharing, but I would have to say that there's a curse word. So hopefully you don't have any little ones while you're watching this. If you do, I apologize. Do not repeat. what you're seeing here. But basically, it's a meme from 300 by 250. Which is an Instagram account, and I also have a Twitter account. It's very funny. I recommend that you follow them. And it shows a lady just holding herself down, squinting and looking ahead of her as if she was waiting on something, but she was tired. So it's basically scanning the. It basically says scanning the placement name multiple times, trying to determine whether it's a blank desktop or mobile tag. So that probably resumed that recapped so well the taxonomy conversation. um, I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, I mean the podcast, that taxonomy was big. There is a lot of conversation around measurement and about taking it down to the source. And John Halverston, I want to say his name correctly, from Mondelez, talked about the marketer's first party data journey, and he literally got down and dirty into the data. Period. He shared an Excel that they use, and he mentioned how they had a taxonomy, and they worked with Media Monks to really standardize a lot of their processes internally to make sure that they're measuring everything. So for those who are not familiar with the word taxonomy or what it represents, I'm happy to walk you through if you need on maybe that would be one-on-one. There's a lot going on when it comes to taxonomy. But he literally shared the taxonomy that they use, and he said that everybody that works with Mondelez has to respect this taxonomy for many reasons and across many regions. And I appreciated that because as a trader or as a former ad ops, heavily worked in trafficking, and it is so important to have consistency, and taxonomy allows us to have consistency in the way we measure performance, measure our messages, measure across the region. So taxonomy is literally a strings of a string of data stitching together that is appended on everything that moves, like a placement, an ad, a creative. And the taxonomy is basically the way they name everything, and it allows to track easily. So for instance, a placement will have, the first thing would have like the region, so maybe the US underscore display, but maybe I'll have the word DIS for display, for instance. Just bear with me in terms of in terms of explanation here. And then I'll have like underscore the size, and then I'll have underscore the name of the creative, and then I'll have another underscore, maybe it'll be a vendor ID. So let's say DB360 is 360, so that when somebody is pulling the report a year from now or a couple of days from now, they'll be able to identify, and based on the same taxonomy, they'll easily be able to say, this is a display tag, it ran 300 by 250, the creative was HTML5, lifestyle, whatever, and it ran in France, in English, because there's a language code. So that's what the taxonomy allows companies and agency to do. I wanted to break it down to you, and if you're already familiar with a taxonomy, great. I hope you implement it, and I hope you take it home and is able to really take it to the next level after hearing John speak. But for those who don't know, basically that's what taxonomy is. It takes a lot of time to implement a taxonomy. There's a certain amount of investment that's involved, which includes the tools, the platforms. I've worked with agencies that use MediaOcean as to make sure that they use their taxonomy. There's also other agencies that use CM360, believe it or not. They've had the taxonomy in an Excel sheet, fill out and spit out that taxonomy, and then just upload with the creative in CM360. So it differs from agency to agency, but that's basically what the whole conversation around taxonomy and what Mondelez did an excellent job at mentioning how to best measure. So the short answer here is that they've implemented consistency and structural process internally to make sure that everybody respects this taxonomy. And he said that they do not work with a vendor that is not following their taxonomy, and that they even have an additional, I'm going to say almost like a safety net or brand safety net for their company that allows them to verify if the tags or taxonomy was implemented correctly. And then they make sure that, I think he threw a percentage out there, but less than like 10% of their taxonomy has an error. And sometimes it was created because of a manual onto what did he a free something, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, there's always a situation where you cannot standardize one thing out of your taxonomy. So there's always like a column where, or a cell where you can add something for free, like manually type something. And that was where most of the error came from, because that was the manual free quote, I think it's called. Okay, so all right, let me get into that. So let's move on into other identity solution conversation. So this is from, I'm sharing on the screen a tweet from Ryan Brickelmeyer. I love this. So he's saying in his tweet, he's saying, is the biggest takeaway from Programmatic IO that the changing identity world will make advertising more expensive, with the need for first-party data and publishers understanding the value of their users? It seems like advertisers will need to pay more. Will they? So he asked this question, and I love that question because, yes, most of the presentation that we heard are all pretty much saying not the same thing. I'm not going to discredit them, but they are pulling some similarities in terms of what are the key takeaways from each presentation. And some of them are identity solutions still needs to be considered as part of your strategy, including contextual targeting. Measurement is still a serious problem when it comes to, in reference to the taxonomy. And so just going back to the example of the taxonomy and what John said, they had to make some investment to, again, I mentioned, into the tools, into the team. You have to have, I'm going to say data engineer, but also you have to grow your ad ops. Like the person that's uploading creative into CM360 may understand the taxonomy process, but they cannot by themselves do both. You have to hire more resources, for instance. So I can understand what Ryan, my good friend, is saying here. It looks like it's going to cost for advertising. Yes, cookie deprecation is going to cost the industry to some level unless we are able to test right away. So I thought that was a pretty dope tweet from my friend Rick. The next tweet I want to chat is from Amanda Martin. And all of those tweets, if you're listening, it's actually on, I probably retweeted it, so you can access it via my tweet, or you can go straight to their tweets, and then I'll make sure in the show notes to tag everybody. And all week this week, I'll literally just post some of those tweets that I'm talking about today. So the next tweet I want to highlight is from Amanda Martin. Her tweet is at Amanda E. Martin, and she says 28% of marketers step back from the identity challenge when Google delayed the timeline, says Criteo. That was wrong. That was the wrong approach from Megan Clarton, which she was on the panel. I can't remember which panel she was on. I'm looking at my anyway. So, and then she adds that she couldn't agree more. Marketers need to be part of the solution. Yes, we need to be part of the solution. Like, I believe it was Dr. Oh, from I apologize. His name is leaving my brain right now, but it was the presentation with Ipan Webb and Criteo and Megan Clarton. So that was the same panel that she's referring to. And he literally said, we will probably have to test between 10 to 20 identity solution partners and vendors before coming across one or two that will work. So we have to test. So there is again, going back to things becoming a little bit more costly. You'll have to test. You'll have to test. So next thing we are going to talk about is, let's see. Oh, I love this quote from Lauren Fisher. She had a presentation from the Advertiser Perception, and she said that advertisers like to talk a big game, but when we look at the first party data path forward, it isn't that obvious. Like only 1 in 10 consider their first party data strategy very mature. So there is a lot of a conversation about how contextual targeting is going to replace cookie deprecation. I mean, third party cookie targeting. How, what else? How first party data is going to be utilized more. First of all, first party data should start being utilized now. But her point in saying so is that some advertisers talk big game, but the reality is that their first party data isn't there, or at least isn't strong enough. She used the word mature. So I think I'm going to agree with her. I think first party data is still in, for some advertisers and some brands, it's just not doable. Some of them are very niche B2B, some are smaller to medium-sized brands. So of course, they probably won't get the million impression a month as some of those identity solution partners are requiring. So yeah, it is still a big problem. 69% of marketers have not implemented identity solution yet, meaning that it was 2021 when they did the research. I believe it was September, I think. Yeah, I think it was in September that they did the research. If I'm wrong, Miss Lauren Fisher or Advertiser Perception, please feel free to leave a comment and of course state the fact because we're here to learn. We want to make sure we're learning. The point is, they did a very recent research, and they found out that 69% of us still have not implemented identity solution. Yikes, that is super scary, y'all. I want to move on to this tweet that I did that sparked quite a conversation on in my Twitter. Shout out to Shiv Gupta there for asking the question. So my tweet said, there's a clear hierarchy when considering targeting and measurement alternatives. Reality may be they may not have enough first-party data, and we're still talking about Lauren Fisher from Advertiser Perception session. And just to give you a close-up, again, if you're listening to the audio, imagine a pyramid divided horizontally in 4, and the top has contextual and cohort base. The second is third-party identity resolution solutions. Third divided segment of the pyramid, going from top to bottom, says others first-party data, second-party data. And then the bottom, which has the bottom of the pyramid, and of course, if you see a pyramid, you know that the bottom is larger than the top, it says first-party data. In this situation, Lauren said that it could be flipped upside down. So first party data may have the smaller share, and contextual targeting may have the larger share. So I thought that was pretty cool. Another tweet from Amanda Martin saying, identity will fundamentally change the way we do business, bringing the buy side and the sell side together to collaborate and cooperate. I am going to agree with this. I think a lot of the conversation that happened during the conference was around collaborating between the sell side and the buy side. In a few moments, we're going to talk about CTV. And there was a lot of talk about needing more collaboration between partners, more transparency in how they collaborated between their partners, between certain brands. So collaboration was a big thing. And I think that is part of our solution when it comes to identity solution. Like, we're going to have to talk to the supply side and figure out what's going on. We're going to have to go direct in some of those partnerships. All right, so let's move on here. Throughout the conference, I gave my own awards, and I called them the $1 million questions. And so there were $1 million questions that I felt like, wow, that was such a powerful thing to ask. One, I would have never asked that question, but like everybody wants to know. So one of the $1 million question is that, what else can we do? And this is basically from a taken from a slide from Angelina Ainge from the IAB, where she covered a lot on measurement. And she said, what can we do? Collaborate, test, and share. You have to share your findings. You have to be able to say, hey, we tested this and it's working. It's going to benefit you. It's going to benefit your partners and the vendors that you're working with. It's also going to benefit the rest of the industry, because everybody can win, okay? Like, y'all think there's a competition out there. Who are you competing against except your own selves? Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna interrupt this quick. If you are on YouTube, that is my daughter. This is the type of text messages I was receiving from my husband while I was trying to focus. My daughter just wearing I guess those were filters, so I thought it was really cute. So I wanted to share with y'all. You're welcome. There you go. So let's talk CTV. So basically, if you have to recap identity solution, which I think I've went on a lot on, it would be test, test, test. Test some more, test again, and then test some more. And then once you're done testing, retest, and then share with the rest of the industry. So it's pretty simple. You got to test, you got to be willing to make that investment. You got to be willing to make the investment internally and externally. Internally, meaning going back to the taxonomy and measurement conversation I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. You got to make certain level of commitment into finding that solution for your clients and for your agency, because you will stand out. You're going to stand out because you made this investment now while you're still able to have third-party cookies. So make the investment, implement certain level of implement certain level of training into your team. Partner with ad tech, partner with people that can help you, y'all. Okay, so let's talk really quickly about CTV, and then we'll highlight really quickly contextual and the two sessions that I wanted to end with. CTV was I think the best presentation on CTV. Oh man, I don't know. There were so many great ones. I want to give a shout out to a former podcast podcast guest, Catherine Dale from SpotX and Magnite. On the video right now, I'm sharing a picture I took of Chris Gain from Jones Media, sorry, and his presentation on CTV was phenomenal because it just pretty much highlighted what I it just it just gave me a different type of perspective on CTV. Like I thought I knew CTV for real. And then he told me that yes, you do, but here's what you didn't maybe know. So that was really cool that he highlighted a different perspective of CTV, which was like, so one of the tweets I have on screen right now for me was multi-channel apps are the futures of CTV, but there's a lot of work still to do. What he meant by that is the fact that even though CTV and streaming require a lot of like technology, like advanced technology in our industry, it is still sold the traditional way, like from a direct standpoint. I can't find a tweet that I did, but in that tweet, I mentioned how, 70%, here it is, 70% of CTV is still sold direct. The marketplace has updated technology, but operating traditionally. So, that's not from Chris Kane. I'm so sorry. Let me make sure I credit people here. This is from Ari Paparo, but it's still part of the CTV conversation, and it's still part, and I think it complemented really well what Chris's session was about in terms of highlighting supply side. How is CTV distribution happening, and more. So that was pretty cool. In order, like, it was two different presentations, but it really complemented each other. Even though that was part of a small percentage of what Ari Papari talked, Chris really honed in of explaining, which is something again that I wasn't quite sure about, how distributors of streaming TV, such as like for instance Roku, um, those apps that where you can add access multiple apps, um, were the future of CTV. And it really made me think about how third party cookies is operating right now, and how whenever that became really sexy to the industry, data providers and data management platforms shot up. I don't know if y'all remember, but when third party cookies was a thing, like when it became a thing in programmatic media, like all of a sudden there was all those data providers coming around. LiveRamp started contacting the agency that I was working at that time. So it just reminded me a little bit of that. But I want to highlight, and before we move to the next conversation, what Chris really, really made sure to mention is that some distributors might be resellers as well. So let's make sure to ask the right question, to follow the inventory, to make sure that we're not paying somebody that is paying somebody to give them the inventory, or paying somebody to pay somebody to pay somebody to get the inventory. So make sure that you follow back your inventory. That is why, again, I mentioned this, and this is not like, you already know I'm all about education and self-development, and that's what I do in my day-to-day work. However, it's all about training your team to look for the right things and ask the right question when talking to partners. If they see that an inventory source is maybe looking, a little bit higher expensive, or just very low and not performing, or is performing but we're not sure, so then that's when you add brand safety filters. That's when you reach out to Method Media intelligence to have them screen post bid, and they're really big on post bid brand safety. And so he really broke it down and left us with like, what kind of question do you want to ask your partners, and on the other side, when you're on the publisher side, what kind of question you want to ask to the advertisers. So that was really cool. So we already reviewed this. I don't think we'll have time to talk about StackAdapt, but StackAdapt did a phenomenal, like it was so bomb. I wish I had like those little sound to like clap, because it was really, really such a great conversation. So just the title like made me sit down, and I'm sharing on the screen, putting cookie-less targeting into context with StackAdapt at the Programmatic IO conference. And I've basically just just posted a meme of somebody just sitting down. StackAdapt did a phenomenal job, and they compared their contextual AI contextual model, and I love stats. If you work in this industry, you love stats, you love case studies, and they shared case studies from different of their clients from different industries. And in every single stats or graph that they shared, they mentioned how their contextual AI model outperformed retargeting. So that was really cool. Let's end the conversation with my two favorite, and of course I left the last one for now. Okay, so I just put a tweet on the screen right here from, again, going back to Lauren Fisher. I think it's important to share this, even though we're moving on to another subject. But she asked how to put together a holistic strategy to allow advertisers to truly measure the effect of cookie deprecation. First party data isn't enough. So going back to what we were saying, I am trying to look for a tweet from my good friend Gavin Dunaway from Media Trust, I believe. I'm sorry, Gavin, if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. But okay, here it is. Oh, okay, here it is. So, so there was a lot of sessions. I am just highlighting the one that stood out based on what I was looking to learn. But there was a lot of panels. There was a lot of fireside chat, like a one-on-one panel with one of the hosts. There was Roku interviews. And then there was Free Will, Dave Clark. I thought his interview was outstanding. It was very fascinating to hear from a different perspective. Free Will is thebomb.com. And so Gavin asked, is panel based with, I think it's a misspell. Okay. Is panel based measurement toast? Free will betting on census measurement data at the impression level. Panel is important to understanding composition of data sets and viewers. If we do not need a panel, if we do need a panel, sorry, what should it look like? And then he adds on, I think he was responding to no, he adds video amps big fundraising round raise eyebrows. CTV market valuation is super frothy, but they're serious and building their tech for a long time. I agree. He says he's agreeing. They have an interesting approach to measurement and should probably make crippled Nielsen nervous. And then he had, how bad is ad fraud in CTV? And, oh yeah, that was Sarah Schluth. Man, shout out to Sarah Schluth, Alison Schiff, and James Hersher. They did a great job. Like, y'all rock. If you don't know who they are, hopefully you do now because you've attended the conference. But if you haven't done so, I strongly recommend their podcast. There's a big talk of AdExchanger, and then there's the other one that I always listen to, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember the name of it. But there's two podcasts. If you search the word AdExchanger podcast, you'll be able to come across both. I mean, shout out to our host for asking the $1 million question. Like, really. Like, they asked question, and I was like, wow, that was bold, but I loved every second of it. Okay. So yeah, so shout out to them. So I think that was Sarah asking Dave Clark from Free Will, how bad is ad fraud in CTV? And then he said, oh boy, this is going to get me in trouble. I believe that's what this tweet is about. So I wanted to share this tweet from Gavin because I think it gave us a different perspective in terms of measurement for from a CTV perspective. And at the same time, like, I did not follow the panel based measurement conversation. Sitting down in that room, I did not follow. So maybe we'll have Gavin come on so he can demystify some of this conversation. And I'm not afraid and I'm not ashamed of admitting that it went over my head at that point. I am one smart B lady. But yeah, that conversation caught me not in my best brain moment. So so let's finish up this podcast with a shout out to Shannon Harris from Jellyfish. Her session was called A Guide to Improving Diversity and Inclusion in Programmatic Advertising. And y'all, before I get to the tweet, y'all, Shannon she did her thing. Okay. She came up, she said, before I'm gonna get into it, here she is. That's her, Shannon, on the screen right now. She went on and she started talking about, she really laid down like why diversity and inclusion is such a challenge. And I am so proud of the presentation because she said, like, when she came to the conference, the first thing she did was look around and she didn't see a lot of people that looked like her. And so she said, look around. How can you identify anybody that looks different from you? And so I looked around, and sure enough, I was the only Black girl in the room. And then I remember there were a couple people from I'm gonna say Asian. And then if you were in the room and then you're I guess non-white or minority based, I'm sorry if I missed you. I just quickly looked because you had to quickly look because they want to be called out. But I thought it was really dope that she had that conversation in terms of diversity, and I applaud every single person that attended that attended that session because it was really nice to be able to understand a different perspective. And even myself, I realized, like, and I told her at the end of the presentation that I realized that I didn't even have enough diversity and inclusion conversation in the the decks that I use to present as a programmatic media coach, or when I'm training a team. Obviously, I'm sharing some sources, but some resources. I mean, so it put I put myself accountable for maybe not doing enough, and I know that I can. So it was an excellent session. I really liked it. Again, not because of the topic, because how uncomfortable it made me, because I realized that I was not doing enough. And also, there's a lot of great information. And just so y'all know, something that stood out to me and I had no idea. She said that jellyfish. She said that they don't work. They required all vendors to bring a certain level of diversity in their team to do business with them, with jellyfish. And she said that they will send back in an RFP. They will not allow a team full of a media team full of maybe young white men to show up to the presentation or to work with them, because it just doesn't represent their clients. So they're really big on implementing certain suits, and it goes back to everything almost that we were talking about, and just highlighting to the taxonomy conversation, implementing certain level of consistency and requiring from your partners to implement and respect what you implemented. Period, point blank. That's all. You have to require them. And I'm not comparing diversity and inclusion with taxonomy, of course, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes it's that simple. You have to require from your vendors a certain level of values. Like, if there's something you're believing it and you don't agree with, why would you accept it from your vendors? And then she went on asking really questions that made my brain work a little bit, for myself, looking at myself. She said, like, when you look at your calendar, does it look like you're going to talk to people like you, people that have different backgrounds? What does it look like? I was like, wow, that is powerful. She also asked, somebody asked her, why do you think there's the great resignation? Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Sorry, y'all, I was thirsty. All right, somebody asked something about, like, why do you think there's a great resignation, and recruiters are struggling to find talent and whatnot. And this is what she said, Shannon Harris from Jellyfish. It's not so much the great resignation, but the great realization. It's not only about income anymore. It's about cultures, it's about flexibility, it's about development, etc. Let me just repeat this. So Shannon Harris answered the question saying, it's not so much about the great resignation, but the great realization. And she went on explaining why. Because now talent, employees, team members are realizing their worth. Why would they keep working, making someone else rich when that somebody is not even taking care of them? So she said the pandemic just highlighted a lot of things and put things into perspective from an employee standpoint. And now they've moved on. They're moving on. They're focusing on their side hustle. They've shifted in the industry from a different industry. Some people have even left completely the whole industry. Instead of going from agency to brands or publisher or ad tech, they just left the industry. They went on to doing something else that may be of interest, because they've realized that, why am I doing all this? And this company can't even allow me to work from home and is requiring me to get back into the office. I don't know. This is just an example. So I love that conversation. I thought it was really, really dope. So Shannon, thank you so much for putting things into perspective for me. I would most definitely take it back with me and implement that. So stay tuned. I will have Shannon on the podcast. I'm speaking into existing. It's thrown out there into the world, so it will happen now. But I had to talk to her, and she said she was interested into joining the podcast to talk about this topic a little bit more. So stay tuned. I'll work on bringing more on diversity and inclusion conversation. And if you're interested, reach out to me or reach out to her, Shannon Harris. I'll make sure to have everyone that I've mentioned: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever I mentioned. I can share information because this is all about highlighting others and others' success. So I will end by um, talking about Brian Chapp from the Tech Recipes. So his session, excuse me, his session was called Six Pillars of In-Housing. So I was like, what? Let me find out. So I went ahead and I went over to that session. I was like, let me find out, because my clients are mainly right now it's agencies. Agencies are calling me to help them. So I'll have a client that I'm working with to train more programmatic traders. I have another client that is just reaching out to me to train their recruiters how to maybe screen for programmatic media traders, SEM, and paid social folks. So I'm training them on fundamentals and what to look, the secret sauce when it comes to programmatic media traders and add ups and whatnot. Another one, I'm doing a little bit of both. I'm providing, because I have an arsenal of buyers thanks to Digital X Media. They're all contracted, but thanks, shout out to you, Digital X Media, for always coming through. And so I have another client where I'm doing both media activation while training somebody. So I'm providing the support that they need because they just lost their programmatic media lead. And they can't hire right now where they're not finding anybody. So I come in, I help them, I provide the buyer that's going to help with the day-to-day, and I work on a one-on-one basis with the strategist that's going to take over that role, or I serve as a liaison between the ad tech, the DSP support, and then the team, because sometimes you really just need somebody to help you like read through things and reassure you that this is what they're saying, etc. So that's what I do. So when I looked at Six Pillars of In-Housing, I was like, well, it makes sense why brands are going in-house, right? So, Brian, your presentation was excellent because it really honed in on, man, it was really good. So, part of what he was basically saying is that his goal to doing this presentation is not for the brands to think they can just, oh, let's replace the agency. It's just not that simple. You need to have an agency partner to help you transition, and transition like a successful in-house model can take 2 to 3 years to implement successfully, and that's only for one department. If you have to, like, let's say, if only for programmatic, if you had to add search and social and everything else, that might take even longer. So realistically, you're going to need the agency to help you, to hold your hand through the transition. So here are the 6 pillars: education, staffing, I think this is communication governance. Oh, sorry, the picture is not very clear. There's finance and billing. There's okay. So let me look on my phone, guys, so I can tell you exactly what it is. But Bryant is his company is called the Tech Recipe, and I mean it was really great. It was really great because it gave a true perspective, and I'm not saying like, oh well, since you're working with agency you don't want things to be bring out. No, bring your programmatic in-house. If you can do the investment, I think it'll give you a little bit more control. It'll definitely give you um the transparency that you need. But just like what Mr. Chap said, you will need support, and an agency partnership is so key. So let me see. All right. Well, I apologize. I can't pull. For some reason, it's still really blurry on my phone. Okay, let me try one last thing, because guess what? I ain't a quitter, and I'm determined to share with you what he said. And if you're working for an agency, you're like, oh, this is not relevant for me, let me just hang up. Don't hang up. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. All right. So here are the 6 pillars of a successful in-house model. So the first one is education, launch a digital transformation training blueprint. So again, talk to me about doing this. I do this all the time. I have template. I did the hard work for you. Staffing, or if not, at least if not me, that's fine. But make sure you partner with like maybe if you're looking at a DSP, you make sure you that DSP you pay them maybe additionally or whatever it is to provide the type of support that you're going to need in addition to them helping them transition or run the campaign for you. So 6 pillars: education, staffing, hiring needs, integrate hiring toolkits and best practices. Communication governance is the third pillar, and it's basically about brand partnership with internal digital leads, single point of contact. So you'll need a programmatic media lead, you'll need a data analyst, you'll need a trader, you'll need like an account executive, etc. The fourth pillar is technology foundation. You cannot run in-house unless you have reliable technology. You have to make that investment. Okay. Ways of working, stakeholder alignment, utilize accountability standard and marketing artifacts. And then the last is finance and billing. Custom financial models used to prevent risk. So Brian helps all of his clients implement all 6 pillars, and he is very good in terms of like expectation communication, because he basically said that it takes some time. It can't be done in one month, unless you have that budget. Even so, you still need somebody like Brian or somebody like me afterwards to continue educating. So it takes time. So I think the best thing that resonated with me was when he said, education drives adoption. Y'all, you're going to be tired of me saying this, but I'm going to repeat this all the time now. Education drives adoption. Yes, it does. The more you know, the more you realize, the more you're empowered, the happier you are, period. So he talked about education of stakeholders, alignment and skill set, upskill, train the trainer, transition leadership, brand cascade, internal ownership, and tech academy. Again, tactical education. This is where I come into play. The staffing needs were as I mentioned earlier, and then I love the fact that he gave like this is what we recommend having in terms of staffing. Obviously, if you are a mature brand, meaning you've been in the business for some times, you've gathered enough and mature first party data. Obviously you have a certain level of yearly budget. You might need a little bit more to staff. You might need 2 or 3 traders on staff instead of one, as he recommended. Versus if you're a smaller brand, and I don't like to use the word small or big, because every brands are big in their own way and in their own mission. But with the financial investment that is needed initially, or with the financial investment that's needed with what comes with programmatic in-housing, that you might have to recalibrate some of the things. So yeah, so staffing, like strategy, a programmatic lead, a measurement lead. He called it a measurement lead, and he had a lot of people ask question about it, but it's somebody that will handle reporting and tagging. Audience science lead, and that will be your trader, and your automation expert. Oh, I guess the automation expert could be the tagging person as well, and or the data visualization engineer. So if you're working with like a Datarama or a demo, even a GDS, honestly, Google Dashboard, you need somebody that has the time and the skill set to build the dashboard. And unfortunately, it's not like, oh, we build it once and it's good. No, most likely there's always something that you're going to have to look into once they're working for you. So Brian did a really, really cool thing. Yeah, he talked about technology must-dos, how you can get started today. There's 4 steps to starting today. Discovery. Second step is infrastructure. Third step is staffing, and fourth step is ownership, maximize ROI, and in-house trading team. His presentation was thebomb.com, y'all. This is great. His name is Brian Chapp. Again, I will have every single one that I mentioned in the show notes that I am going to write myself, and I am going to take some time to reach out to every single one of you to have you on the podcast to give me your 2 cents. Now, I do want to end this podcast by saying Programmatic IO was a great investment. Not only did I learn a lot about, again, topics of conversation and discussion, but I got to make good friends. I want to give a shout out to FA, who is a consultant, programmatic marketing consultant at Zeta. Thank you, Zeta Global. That's who I remember. Shout out to you, Amanda Rankin, who will be a panelist on the contextual targeting next week. We're doing a live podcast, so tune in for that. Check more information on the website and on LinkedIn. Shout out to Catherine Dale. Even though I didn't get to see you, it was so nice knowing that you rocked the presentation. Catherine is amazing. Kat is just amazing. And then Matt Barash for, again, his podcast. I actually happened to be live that Tuesday, and I got to meet him on Tuesday. So it was really nice. The last shout out I'm going to do is Carell Cooper from the Minority Report and from Live Intent. Shout out to you, Carell. Thank you so much for your guidance and your support. It was really dope being able to, chat for 6 minutes, and for an introduction to Angelina Ange, from the IAB. I literally had told him, oh yeah, I just came out of Angelina's presentation. It was dope. I've been looking forward to meeting her. I've been following her on all of her social media. I can't wait to have her on the podcast. I have so many questions. And she walks by and he introduced me. So shout out to you. You are the real MVP for doing that. And you're an inspiration. All of you that I've talked to, you're an inspiration. Shout out to Statista. I apologize. I do not remember your name, but all of you have my information. Save it into your phone and text me or call me. That is why I shared my information, thanks to the dot. And so Statista was there, and I mentioned to them that most of the graphs that I refer to are from e-marketers, and it's nice to know that there's another source that we can also refer to. And so I'll be reaching out to them soon. Basis Technology was in the house. That was really dope to be able to meet a few of them. L'Oreal was also in the house. I saw IOTA, Captify, obviously Magnite and SpotX were there. I talked to so many people. So I truly apologize if I didn't mention you, but you are truly appreciated. Let's end with a word of wisdom. Make time for yourself. I came home. I wanted to dive right back in and ended up getting sick. That is why I'm recording this podcast at the last minute. But I don't regret it. I cannot not hug my baby who had a cold, but no worries, y'all. It was just a cold, okay? You hear me? It's just a cold. So thank you all for tuning in. Again, my name is Helene Parker. I am the host of the Programmatic Digest podcast. I am also the host of a live series, a show called The Programmatically Correct, that is mostly geared towards digital marketers who wants help understanding the programmatic industry. So during the Programmatically Correct show, we demystify our industry by highlighting some fundamentals and key points about our industry, like different strategies, what are targeting capabilities, etc. So as mentioned at the beginning of the podcast and throughout, that we are going to have 3 live panels in November, the next week. On the 8th, on the 8th, we'll have a live panel on contextual targeting. On the 15th, we'll have e-commerce holiday with 2 of my very close friends who are badasses in Facebook, paid social and paid media strategy. And then on the third week, which happened to be Thanksgiving week, it is the Women in Programmatic, which is an international club based in the UK, or headquartered rather in the UK. And we will be talking all things women in programmatic, work life balance, projection from the industry, and international perspective. And then the last podcast will be just a review with me again. You get to have me again. Yay! And in December, we have even more exciting things happening. So thank you all for tuning in. This podcast is going to be rather long, but I think it's all worth it. You can't expect to resume or recap or summarize 2 whole days or bomb information into less than an hour. So I have no regrets with this one, and I will not cut anything else. Like, I'm literally going to publish it this way. So reach out to me, info at heleneparker.com, programmatic-jess.com. And don't forget that we're still accepting new members in the Programmatic Meetup. The Programmatic Meetup is a community we are building under the podcast umbrella to build a community of ad ops or programmatic traders, media buyers, anybody that touches the campaign or work really closely on performance and KPI performance. And it's just a community for us to talk shop, period. Like, we have themes every month. We have a challenge that we're doing. Shout out to the Programmatic Meetup. We're doing a challenge where we are reading one article every day and writing on LinkedIn what we've learned. It doesn't have to be very long, y'all. I'm literally saying, even if it's just a quote that you want to copy paste, at least you'll be able to remember that quote. So thank you all. Make it a great day. You're the bomb. I I don't know what else to say. I love you guys. All right. Have a good one, guys. Bye.